Whether Matthew was acquainted with the instructions of the progymnasmata may be debated by scholars, but the impact of this strategy among those literate in Greek is beyond question. The retainer class, which Matthew as a scribe, whoever Matthew is, the person we call Matthew, the author of the text we call Matthew, he would have been part of that retainer class. That retainer class was especially quick to take note of stories about royalty. Remember, he's writing this that tells you something about the Matthean community, who they are. Those retainers are interested in royalty because they depended upon their existence for their place on the system. They derived all their power and authority from the elites, the smokestack. Moving right along, Matthew chapter 2, verse 7. Then Herod called the Magi secretly and ascertained from them the time of the star's appearance. Life in Mediterranean societies typically has very little privacy. There's next to no privacy in the Middle East, if any. Everything honorable is expected to be done in public because only the dishonorable have something to hide. Thus, in villages throughout the Mediterranean world, even to this day, doors of houses are always open during the day because a show is being made of doing one's business in public. We got nothing to hide. The fact that King Herod operates secretly, remember it says he had a secret meeting with the Magi, here signals to Matthew's audience that he is acting dishonorably.
Wow, that one word, secretly, we would skim right over, completely miss the whole meaning.
We have secret meetings all the time in the West. What does it matter? Okay, affairs of state, you need secrecy. The honorable Magi, however, refused to cooperate in the scheme. Verse 16, when Herod realized that he had been deceived by the Magi, he became furious. He ordered the massacre of all the boys in Bethlehem and its vicinity, 2 years old and under, in accordance with the time he had ascertained from the Magi. Who exactly were the Magi? And exactly how many of the Magi were there who came to visit Jesus in the story? Even if it's a fictive story, if it's a fiction that Matthew is generating to express truth about Jesus, let's get his details right. How many does he tell us there were? You ask many Catholics this question, and many will know that the Magi who visited Jesus, spurious knowledge here, that the Magi who visited Jesus at his birth in Matthew are now fixed at 3 persons and named Caspar, Melchior, and Balthasar. Where do those names come from? Does the text of Matthew say there were only 3 Magi? Does it mention their names? No. In Matthew, they are anonymous and unnumbered. On the other hand, the Eastern Christian tradition, especially the Syrian tradition, holds that there were 12 Magi in number. That would make an interesting manger scene, wouldn't it? Especially considering no matter how many Magi there were, whether there was 3 or whether there was 4, like the 4th Magi, beautiful story, or 12 or 300 Magi, none of them went to a manger. They go to a house. Scholars do not consider the Magi, Mesopotamian astrologers, who come to visit Jesus at his birth as historical fact. The Bible's all true, some of it actually happened. This part didn't happen in real life. It is probably a rich traditional reflection on Scripture, likely the story of Balaam in Numbers 22 through 24, intended to demonstrate that honorable Gentiles coming to honor Jesus the Messiah was part of God's plan. even though this event did not happen in the life of Jesus, the characters of Matthew's Magi may have been inspired by a real historical memory. In 66 Common Era, the new Armenian king came to Caesar Nero in Rome to have his kingship confirmed. He and his 3 companions were called Magi, and one account notes that they did not return by the route followed in coming. Matthew may have reworked this incident in order to assert narratively that Jesus is the authentic king of Judeans, not Caesar. And unlike those who came from the east to defer to Nero, the Matthean Magi came from the east to confirm the kingship of Jesus. Does that make sense? Matthew chapter 2, verse 11. And on entering the house, they saw the child with Mary his mother. They prostrated themselves and did him homage. Then they opened their treasures and offered him gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Gold, frankincense, and myrrh are 3 types of incense or gums that produced fragrant odors when burned. The gold is not real gold. It's a golden incense, a specific incense that has a specific liturgical function. The gold incense is incense that gets used on the golden altar. In Hebrews chapter 9, verses 3 to 4. Behind the second veil was the tabernacle called the Holy of Holies, in which were the gold altar of incense and the Ark of the Covenant entirely covered with gold. In it were the gold jar containing the manna, the staff of Aaron that had sprouted, and the tablets of the covenant. So it's not gold. What they gave him was not gold. It was stuff that goes with the gold altar of incense. Is that interesting? Bringing gifts were always, in the ancient world, gesture of honor. Because there were 3 different types of incense, later tradition deduced to the presence of 3 magi. Later Western tradition. There's no such indication of that in the story of Matthew.
No matter how many came, they all could have brought the same 3 gifts.
That's right. And they're 3 incense gifts.